second year master's student at the University of Memphis. He's from Washington, D.C., and currently studies with Professor Susan Leonard. Mr. Nunez received his bachelor's degree at Marshall University in 2014. Over the summer, he will perform in Chicago's Summer Opera as Sid at Albert Fairman and perform at Miami Music Festival. Robert thanks his family for being supportive of his aspirations, his sports teacher, and all of the friends at the University of Memphis. Robert is receiving the Master's Music degree today. Music is being rendered by our graduate string quartet, our graduate brass quintet, and woodwind quintet. Dr. Albert Wynn, conductor.
Good afternoon. Please be seated. I'm Carol West, University Provost. I want to welcome you to the spring convocation of the 104th commencement of the university. We are extremely proud of our graduate class. Today we will award a total of 2,416 degrees from the 13 schools and colleges that comprise the University of Memphis. During this ceremony, we will recognize one of our schools and 3 of our colleges. This brings the number of degrees awarded since 1912 to 163,301. At this time, I would like to introduce some special members of the platform party who will be participating in today's ceremony. Please stand as you are introduced. Ms. Melanie Murray, University Counsel. Mr. Bobby Prince, Chief Development Officer. Dr. Andrew Myers, Vice President for Research and Executive Director, University of Memphis Research Foundation. Mr. Robert Jackson, Interim Chief Information Officer. Dr. Rosie Phillips Bingham, Vice President for Student Affairs. Dr. Sabrina Ford, University Libraries. Mr. Tom Bannon, President and Faculty Senate. Dr. Richard R. Rancher, Founding Dean, College of Communication and Fine Arts, and having been with us for 44 years of dedicated service to the university, to the Memphis community, locally and nationally, we want to give him a round of applause now for his last community service. Thank you. Dr. Joy Lucas, Assistant Dean, University College. Dr. Tomina Dean, College of Arts and Sciences. Ms. Tammy Hectors, Vice President for External Relations. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. David Knowles, President of the Student Government Association. David is a senior majoring in health and human performance with a concentration in exercise and sport science. David.
Good evening. I would like to start by first congratulating each and every individual who has the honor of calling themselves a Spring 2016 graduate of the University of Memphis. I would then like to congratulate the parents, grandparents, family, and friends that have also made it possible for these great people to be sitting in front of us today. I congratulate you all on completion of a journey, a chapter in your life that I'm sure has been a great educational one. Along this journey, you have probably learned just as much about yourself as you have about your choice of study. And it was the self-knowledge and a dream of a future self that helped you to be able to make those hard decisions and to be able to make the choices that you made in your college career. It was those decisions that made you stay up through those long days and even longer nights, the 12 hours of cramming right before the big test that you knew about months before because you saw it in syllabus. And the financial struggle that you went through these 4 or 5 or 6 years you did in life. All of these things have been great accomplishments because you saw within yourself a greater self. I applaud you for forming, sculpting, and polishing that greater self. And now, on the 7th day of May, 2016, I encourage you to go out and show that greater self to everyone that you meet. But all the while knowing that you have even greater things that lie ahead of you in the world of life. But I urge you not to forget about the time that you spend dreaming and learning about yourselves, because just as you have had the opportunity to do great things, you have opportunities to do even greater things. I would like to leave you with a quote by Justin Scott. Some of you may know this big girl. Just know that I was once considered just a dreamer. Then I paid my dues and turned so many doubters into believers. Thank you for being dreamers, and thank you for turning those into reality. I encourage you all to go and lead great lives. Stay dreaming of your greater selves and stay driven by them. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We've always enjoyed the presence of members of the Tennessee Board of Regents at our commencement. Today, the representative, the Honorable Jay Templeton, Commissioner of the Department of Agriculture, will bring greetings. Mr. Templeton.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure of mine to be with you here today on behalf of our Governor, the Chairman of the Board of Regents, Honorable Bill Haslett, Acting Chancellor Gregory, and my other colleagues on the Tennessee Board of Regents. It is a distinct pleasure to bring greetings to you, a dynamic group of graduates, your family, friends, the faculty, and other guests. The Tennessee Board of Regents system consists of 46 institutions, including the University of Memphis, with a combined annual enrollment of almost 200,000 students, one of the nation's largest higher education systems. I'm extremely proud of the high level of performance, achievement, and accomplishments here at the University of Memphis. As students of this great institution, you have been able to witness and experience many of the university's successes. This high level of performance and academic excellence is also evident in today's graduating class. As a university, as well as those of us gathered, will honor you as now graduates of the University of Memphis. Congratulations. Today, you are making your mark in history by being one of over 2,416 graduates in this weekend's spring graduation class from colleges and schools with more than 17 bachelor's degrees in more than 50 majors and 70 concentrations, master's degrees in over 55 subjects, and doctoral degrees in 23 disciplines, specialist degree in education, and the Juris Doctor. To today's graduate, be proud of their accomplishments. Parents and friends, it's a great day for me, my wife, and our family as our very own David Rose graduates here today and is part of this graduating class. Be proud of your university, the University of Memphis, and again, on behalf of our government, all across the state of Tennessee, we all offer you our sincerest best wishes as you embark on this new chapter of your life. Thank you.
It's also my distinct pleasure to introduce our 12th president of the University of Memphis, Dr. M. David Wright.
Let me ask before I start to have all of our graduates, this is a special day for many reasons. It's a special weekend also for mothers and sisters graduates to give mothers a hand today for all of you. Let me add my welcome to you to the spring convocation of the 104th commencement at the University of Memphis. Today is an exciting day for those of us at the university. We've had an opportunity to work with you as students, get to know you as individuals, and become aware of the talents and the dreams. We've watched you learn, mature, and now we have the opportunity to help you move on to the next phase in your life. It is a thrill for us to be involved in your education in each and every way. It's my opportunity now and privilege to introduce you to a commencement speaker. I have to assure you we have a wonderful commencement speaker for you here today, Terry Lee Freeman. She was appointed president of the National Civil Rights Museum in November of 2014. As president, Terry is responsible for providing strategic leadership in furthering the museum's mission as an educational and cultural institution. Ms. Freeman's goals for the museum include establishing the museum as the new public square for dialogue about and around civil and human rights, providing a safe space for people to exchange and learn, becoming an institutional center for the promotion of nonviolence, social justice and equity, and being a hands-on educational resource for those desiring historical knowledge of civil rights and human rights. For 18 years, Ms. Freeman served as the president of the Community Foundation for the National Capital Region, the largest funder of nonprofit organizations in Washington, D.C. In that position, she distinguished herself for her community building, her role in creating community consensus, her leadership on critical issues to improve the quality of life, and her record of increasing the community foundation's assets from $52 million to a remarkable $350 million. Each year since 2009, the Washingtonian Magazine has identified Ms. Freeman as one of the 100 most powerful women of Washington. The Washington Business Journal identified Ms. Freeman as one of the women who means business, and in 2004, Washington Life magazine identified Ms. Freeman as a woman of substance and style. That is a nice designation. She was named the Washingtonian of the Year in 2002. Since moving to Memphis, she has been featured in the Commercial Appeal, Southern Soul magazine, and Inside Memphis Business. Ms. Freeman has received her bachelor's degree in journalism and communication from the University of Dayton and her master's degree in organizational communications from Howard University. She is married to Dr. Boyer G. Freeman and is a proud mother of 3 daughters and has a new grandchild that you may have seen. And we are thrilled to have her with us. Please join me in welcoming Terry Lee Freeman.
What a beautiful sight you are, and all of you as well. You all should be very proud that all of these people have come out for this very momentous occasion. Well, President Wright, Provost Webb West, to the Board of Regents, to the Board of Directors, distinguished faculty, guests, family, and friends, good afternoon. And to the stars of the show, the graduates of the class of 2016, congratulations. You have met your financial obligation. You completed all of your assignments and finished in good academic standing. And I will tell you a little story about that a little bit later. And right now, I am always standing between you and them. What power I have. Oh no, really, I am honored and humbled to stand in this place and speak to you today at your commencement. An event that will fit in the scrapbook of memorable events. An event that should motivate. An event that should be both a well done, signaling the completion of one phase of your lives, and a send-off as we watch with pride you're beginning a life of discovery. And the commencement speech, well, it should not be remembered by its length, but for its message and substance. So, that said, my promise to you is that I will employ the 3S technique that I learned from my husband, which is to stand up, speak up, and shut up. So today, with the turn of your tassel, you will begin to create your legacy. Now you might be thinking, legacy? I just want to enjoy not having to pay attention to the next assignment on the syllabus. I know that feeling of accomplishment and of completion. But in fact, your journey has just begun, and it will be what you make it. Recently, I was asked the question, what lessons would you tell your 25-year-old self? I gave that question a lot of thought, and since we can't turn back the hands of time, and I'm privileged to stand in this spot today, I will pass those lessons on to you, since I'm certain that all of you are closer to 25 than I ever will be again. So lesson number 1, life truly is a marathon, so don't sprint through it. We all recognize that life is a marathon, but far too often we complete the marathon through a series of sprints. We can be so focused on the outcome that we miss the enjoyment of the journey. Now, I'm not a marathon runner, but I know that during the marathon, the athlete experiences both highs and lows. The first thing they do is prepare for the race. The night before, they eat the proper nutrition, fueling their body with carbohydrates that will take them from beginning to end. So I guess the sub-lesson out of this is that carbs are your friend. But on the following day, they experience that euphoria at the sound of the horn signaling the start of the race. They experience the joy of completing those first few miles with little discomfort. Then they begin to stretch themselves, lean on the months of training they've endured. They begin to feel their muscles responding and being pushed. The need for refreshment increases. Sometimes self-doubt will enter the picture through negative self-talk. I'm not good enough. I didn't train hard or long enough. Or, why am I out here at 7 a.m. in the rain trying to run 26.2 miles? They often see a wall that seems impenetrable, and they begin to employ tactics, repeating a mantra, visualizing success, thinking about a pleasurable moment or moments in their lives to help them cope with the physical realities of pushing their bodies to the limit. And just as they reach that big, hairy, audacious wall, they dig deep and find something within themselves that motivates them to go around or above the obstacle. They face the difficulty, they move beyond it, and success is in sight. The worst appears to be over. Additional refreshment aids the mind when the athlete is fully connected to their physical selves. But at this point, they have transcended to a mental place that says, I got this. The runner sees the finish line and soon hears the cheering crowd and the sounds of victory. And then the body reminds them of the feat they've just accomplished and the toll it has taken. Now, there is a need for a period of recovery. During the period of recovery, the athlete has the opportunity to step back, relax, release, and renew. Life is like this marathon experience. Along the 26.2 miles, there is beauty that you need to take in. Along the 26.2 miles, there are people who will be there to help provide you with refreshment. Kindly accept their assistance because you will never finish if you go alone. Along the 26.2 miles, there will be obstacles that will challenge your stamina and will cause you to question your ability. But for every obstacle, there's always a way around or over it. If you dig deeply and really put on your thinking caps, as the old folks used to say, you will find abilities you never knew you had. And soon, the obstacles will be in the rearview mirror. Lesson number 2. To build your character, you've got to go through something. Character is not born, it is built. Just because you now have a degree and can put a few letters behind your name, or in the case of some of you, almost an entire alphabet, does not mean you have character. Book learning does not build the integrity that comes with experience. And your character is defined by your integrity. It is the moral qualities, ethical standards, and the principles by which we live our lives. So let me tell you a story. Remember I said I was going to get back to this whole in good academic standing thing. I remember sitting in the stadium at the University of Dayton, waiting, or more appropriately, praying that my name would be called to walk across the stage, shake the president's hand, and receive my diploma. It was April 1981. I, like all my fellow graduates, went to the ROTC building to pick up my cap and gown. I was beaming from ear to ear. It was all finished but the shot. I walked up to the woman at the table and gave her my name. Terry Lee, I said, with much anticipation to receive that beautiful black cap and gown. She looked at her list, because there were no computers, no comments. She looked at her list, she scrolled across, and then she looked up at me with a smirk, I might add, and delivered these words. You're not graduating. You have not satisfactorily completed your political science class. Well, I could literally feel the blood drain from my face. Panic washed over me, and I responded, no, you don't understand. My mother and grandfather will be here next weekend. I've got to graduate or they're going to kill me. She then politely handed me a printout of the class I was obviously failing. And it just happened to be a class I took with my then boyfriend, now husband of almost 30 years in just a couple of weeks. I ran to his apartment, and as the tears flowed down my face, I hysterically explained my situation to him, and he responded thusly. I told you you needed to take that class seriously.
Somebody's fainted.
It was not exactly the response I wanted to hear. So my next step was to go to my professor, eat a whole lot of crow, and figure out how I might convince him to let them give me a diploma. It took the reading of approximately a half of a textbook and significant writing assignments within 48 hours to get the hardest fought seed known to man. When my name was called on that Saturday in April, I thanked God and vowed that accomplishing the task at hand would never be something I would put off ever again. That was my first true character building experience, and I'm a better person for having dealt with this adverse situation. Now, she's not here now, but she was here this morning. My mother was in the audience. It was the first time she's ever heard that story. She was a little shocked to say the least, but I told her, see here, I am. This is what can happen if you don't pass the class. Well, I got through. I'm thankful also, though, that I have a couple of my daughters here, and they can tell you that during their time at home, anytime they had to go through something difficult, anytime they had a failure, anytime they experienced rejection, anytime they were fourth on the list and there were only 3 places, I would tell them to chalk it up to character building. You see, to really develop character, you got to go through something. And the more difficult, the better. Let me illustrate it this way. What we think of as bread only develops those characteristics after the yeast is proofed, the dry and wet ingredients are combined, and the dough is kneaded, rested, and often kneaded again before being shoved into a hot oven. But after 30 minutes or so, what we have is a beautifully delicious loaf of homemade bread, which can often steal the show at the dinner table. For bread to become bread, it must go through something. Our lives are very similar. At this point on your journey, with the help of your family and the University of Memphis, you have the raw materials to become bread. In fact, I'm certain your yeast has been proofed. And some of you may have begun to mix the dry and wet ingredients. But trust me, the real kneading is yet to begin. And while you may have danced around a microwave or a toaster oven, trust me, there's a double oven in your future that will be set to broil, bake, or time cook. And the character development you will gain from those experiences will help you learn how to deal with adversity. Remember, there is no shame in failure, but in not acknowledging the failure and learning from it. A Zen master describes it as such. Human actions have many faults and errors. This is something that neither the wise or foolish can avoid. Yet it is only the wise who can correct their faults and change to good, whereas the foolish mostly conceal their faults and cover up their wrongs. Lesson 3. Perfection is best left to a higher power. As you continue along your journey with its many twists and turns, you will find that sometimes you are in the driver's seat, and at other times you are simply a passenger on the ride. There will be times when you will give 100%, and those around you will applaud your hard work and effort. Other times, that same 100% will get you no recognition. It is in those times when you might challenge yourself to work to what you see as perfection. Complete the project ahead of schedule, under budget, and without any assistance, and deliver it to your boss with a nice red bow. But at what cost? Possibly in pushing so hard to achieve perfection, you've isolated yourself from friends, family, or colleagues. Or maybe you've pushed so hard that you've sacrificed your morning run and your afternoon yoga that helped you maintain your mental edge and your physical stamina. Or you've been burning the midnight oil and your perfect project is filled with imperfections simply because you are tired. My point here is that you will be tempted as you move into the next phase of life to want to strive for perfection and get that perfect 100% on everything that you do. But I would encourage you to set your own bar, always doing your best, striving for excellence, but not perfection. You'll have a lot less discipline. Lesson number 4, write your own documentary. At the National Civil Rights Museum, I had the opportunity to meet incredible people who have accomplished or endured incredible things. People like Joan Trumpauer Mulholland, a white woman who chose to put her very life on the line to integrate lunch counters and interstate travel when she was a college student. People like the mother of Trayvon Martin, who lost her 17-year-old son to a murderer found not guilty of killing her unarmed child. Or Judge Dana Keith, a 93-year-old sitting federal judge who in his lifetime forced the desegregation of schools, equitable housing policy, right thing. And each of them made that decision recognizing the public humiliation, taunting, and some instances terror that would have to face them. But they followed the path of right to do something that would help someone else. The documentaries of their lives are awe-inspiring and encourage others of us to do the right thing. At this very moment, you each have the opportunity to begin to write your own documentary that will leave an indelible mark on history. So as you begin this journey of life, after the graduation parties, the graduation trips, and other celebrations, keep these 4 lessons in mind. Life is a marathon. Make sure you enjoy the 26.2 miles. Character building is often painful, but will build your mettle and is always worth it in the end. Strive for excellence, not perfection. Live your life as if you are writing your own biopic documentary. And just for extra punch, a 5th, smile a lot, maintain your sense of humor, and enjoy life. Congratulations, class of 2016. We are anticipating great things. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman, for your timely, insightful, and very meaningful comments. We will now recognize each of the graduates. Their names will be read by Mr. David Allen, Assistant Professor of Musical Theater, and Ms. Tammy Jones, Instructor of English. At this time, I ask our guests to join us in acknowledging the accomplishments of our graduates. We draw your attention to the overhead screen that will allow you to have a close-up view of each candidate with President Rudd. The candidates for the doctoral degrees will be presented by Dr. Jasmine Dollywall, Vice Provost for Academic Affairs and Dean of the Graduate School.